Hi and welcome to this Battlegroup Essentials video. In this video I will talk about what we will need to purchase to start playing Battlegroup. I will not talk about any painting or modeling. That will be a completely different set of videos, so this will more or less just contain what you need to get started. I have the links for everything that I will show down in the description, and let's get right into it. So first up we will need the rulebook. The rulebook is basically what the whole gaming system hangs on to. So the rulebook will contain rules for movement, shooting, morale. You have scenarios, and you have two army lists. You have late war Germans and late war Canadians. If you want to play any other theater or time period in World War II, you will need to get a theater book. The theater books contain all the rules for that specific theater. You can't really play an army list from one book versus an army list from another book, so they are self-contained units. My favorite book is the Blitzkrieg book, so very early war, so invasion of Poland, invasion of France. But you also have the invasion of Russia, you have Northern Africa, Pacific War, very, very late war. So basically you need the core rulebook and one of the theater books. They are releasing a new theater book, I think this year, which will be Stalingrad, so I'm looking forward to that. But today I was thinking that we should look at the Overlord Beyond the Beaches supplement. This is basically the battle for Normandy in 1944, so just after D-Day. And this book contains army lists for American infantry, armored divisions, German infantry and armored divisions, and British, and I probably forget a couple of army lists. So you get 8 to 10 army lists in this book, basically. Each army list has its core in infantry, so you will always need a core amount of infantry troops in each army. And I would suggest for a good starter army that you aim for about 200 points. That will give you a good base to build on, basically. And looking at the Germans first, I would go with the late war infantry box. This would, I think, quite comfortably put you over 200 points if you put all of this on the table. But the variety isn't really there, so I would also suggest that when you buy this, you buy the infantry heavy weapon box, so you get some mortars and Fausts and Panzerschrecks and some MG42s, so you can mix and match a bit. Or you could go down the route of grenadiers and, for example, buy the German Normandy Grenadier bundle. That gives you basically the same thing but with grenadiers. And of course you will need an opponent, and for that I would suggest the late war US infantry. And just as for the Germans, I would suggest that you also buy the heavy weapon teams. So with this purchase you will get a good 200 point starter army just to get the feel for the gaming system, and then you can start adding all the tanks and all the artillery and scouting vehicles and such. But remember that you will always need the infantry as a base. If we go down the Overlord D-Day route, I would suggest that you buy the Hit the Beach box from Flames of War. Here you get tanks and infantry, so you get a quite a different start. But since this is a historical game, you could most definitely use Flames of War miniatures in together with the plastic soldier infantry, for example. As long as they're in the same scale, you can mix and match whatever manufacturers you feel like, basically. So this is another route that you could take. You will also need some terrain to fight over, and for that I would suggest buying a gaming mat. The gaming mats come in different materials. You could get PVC ones, but I would suggest getting the ones that are based on mouse pads. So this is a very large 6x4 mouse pad with a grassland print on one side and desert on the other. So you could quite comfortably play both European theater and North Africa on it. But just playing on a flat table isn't really that interesting. So we could, for example, add some hills and some trees, some rivers, or even more trees and rivers and houses. For this one, since I went down the Normandy route, these are basically good for Normandy buildings. So you have Arnhem and Dunkirk, for example. Playing the game, you will also need some dice. I think you only need D6s. So you could go with these generic ones, or you could go with what I did and bought themed ones. So this is a Germany themed dice set. And I think that gives you that little bit of extra immersion using the correct dice for your army. And finally, we need something to measure all our distances with. So we get a tape measure. So just to recap, you will need a rule book. You will need a theater book. You will need infantry, around 200 points to start off with. Terrain, dice, and a tape measure. If you have any comments or questions, put them in the comment section below. And all the links are in the description. And I see you on Sunday.